Stop dying. Yes, that is the subject of this week's Fox Talks podcast or vlog. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I'm your host, Get Good Fox, and as you know, I've got quite a bit of experience just destroying the lethal zone, and my previous episodes have been about how to make the game better. This time I want to talk about how to make you better, the player. This will specifically be geared towards the green zone or the standard zone player who is looking to improve and eventually conquer the nightmare zone and the lethal zone. Let's go ahead and introduce the talking points. So yeah, not taking damage could be a good idea. I know, I'm not a medical person, I'm not like a doctor, but I don't think anyone's going to disagree if I say that the leading cause of death in State of Decay is taking damage, because it makes you die. It makes you get blood plague. And if you don't take damage, you won't die. And I know most people are like, well, no crap, Fox, I know that. But let me tell you, I don't know if people know that, because I watch people play. I see the clips on Reddit, and people get absolutely hammered. They are getting just trashed up and down the game. But the thing is, they're not dying because they're playing on green zone and standard zone, where you can take quite a bit of damage before ultimately dying. And while it's not necessarily a problem that it is that way, it does invite getting used to that and taking it for granted, the amount of damage the zombies will eventually do. And it can create a bad habit of just being like, yeah, damage is annoying, but it's not that big of a deal. Once you get to nightmare zone, and especially lethal zone, getting just pounded, it's going to get you killed, or it's going to waste tons of supplies as you have to just like just chug these plague cures in order to reverse blood plague infection that happens very, very quickly. Remember, on lethal zone, without any bonuses, a plague zombie's bite is going to give you like 60% infection. So if you get bit once, that character needs to go back to base, because what are you going to do? Risk using them some more? You already made the mistake of getting bit. What are you going to say? Well, I'm going to be super careful now, and I'm not going to get bit. What's going to happen is you will get bit, and now you've got full-blown blood plague, and so that character's either dead, or you have to stabilize, or you're going to have to use a plague cure, which burns some of your medicine. The smart thing to do would have been to go back to base, because you got bit. Now, you don't have to be perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. That said, there is a difference between damage that you should consider unacceptable and damage that you consider acceptable. By using this and training very hard to avoid unacceptable damage, my last Twitch playthrough, which, yes, by the way, I do play on Twitch, I did a harder core State of Decay playthrough, lethal zone, fresh start, no boons, no DLC, none of my cheap OP things, or what people consider cheap and OP. And not only did I beat it, but we beat it without anyone dying, and no one got blood plague. And I did it by avoiding powerful sources of damage while still getting hit by normal sources of damage. So let's talk about it. What's the difference? How do you recognize acceptable damage and unacceptable damage? Well, let's start with a normal zombie. A bite versus a scratch. Scratches are fine. Even on lethal zone, yes, scratches do more damage. Yes, scratches cause more blood plague infection, but it's tolerable. Like, you get hit a few times, and then, yeah, eventually you may need to fix yourself up. You may swap characters. Scratches are not a big deal. You don't need to be perfect. Like, this is not an episode that's saying you just need to get good and be perfect. No, that's not at all what I'm saying. On the other hand, bites are a problem. Bites are devastating. And instead of waiting until lethal zone to learn to avoid getting bit, start on green zone and standard zone. Every time you get bit on green zone and standard zone, I want you to consider that a minor failure. Failure is a strong word, so I use the word minor. So you don't need to like Sudoku just because you got bit. But when you do get bit, I want you to think about like why that happened, because bites are devastating on the higher difficulties, and you should start now in green and standard, ironing out this problem first. Now, the way you get bit does tell me a little bit about what the potential problems that you might want to consider are. So, if you're getting bit from the front, that tells me that you're being like really, really overconfident. Like you are attacking very aggressively, or perhaps you are using your grabs at the wrong time, because if you attempt to grab a zombie when you can't do it, you'll basically like bounce off of them and you'll be staggered for a while. And then, yeah, a zombie can certainly bite you in that time frame. So those are the things to look out for. If you're being like really, really reckless, well, I'll talk a little bit about the melee styles that might cause you to do that. Now, if you're getting bit from the sides or from behind, that tells me one of two things. Either A, you're really, really greedy. You're just like, let me get one more hit, one more hit, one more hit. Or I'm going to get my invulnerability frames when I execute an enemy. He won't be able to grab me. Just really, really greedy. And that is certainly a issue, once again, of overconfidence. The other issue is tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is where you just get laser focused. Just all you're focusing on is this one little thing, probably the zombie in front of you, and then the zombies behind you or to the sides of you. You weren't paying attention to them, and then they got you. So that's an issue of awareness. Now, all of these are typically going to happen because of melee combat. And melee is very important. It's the most effective way of neutralizing small amounts of zombies in a low-cost manner. But you need to know what your melee weapons are capable of doing. Remember that blunt weapons can swing through multiple enemies, even without the Grand Slam ability, but that does invite greediness. It does invite overconfidence. Like, just because you can swing through many zombies, be careful about when they are moving. Remember, the reason why a bite should be considered a minor failure is because it's such a slow attack. It's so obvious when a zombie is going to bite you. That's the main reason why it should be seen as a failure, because it is so easy to avoid. Now, if you're using a sword, it's just the opposite. Remember, a sword can only hit one zombie at a time. So if you've got 2 or 3 zombies on you, you need to be ready to dodge, because while you're chopping one of them up, another one might take a swing at you or bite you. All of the attacks are quite slow. Even the swipes and scratches are slow. So you should learn to dodge. Like, just dial down that aggression and use the dodge ability. Once you get swordplay, you have many ways to break up clusters of zombies. You can use the leg sweep before you're maxed out, and when you have a fully maxed out swordplay, you can go for the standing execution. But sometimes you need to weave in dodges. You need to execute, dodge in order to avoid taking damage. Close combat, a lot of people don't like it. For good reason. Close combat can be very clumsy to use, but close combat can be very powerful. And remember, you never need to repair a close combat weapon, so it can save a ton of parts in repairs. But to use close combat effectively, you pretty much only want to use executions. Executions are the way to go. Stabbing the zombies, it takes a very long time to do it when you could just one-shot kill them with executions. And remember all the ways you can do it. You've got the rear grab with the close combat skill, lets you do the head stab. Remember, if you're behind a zombie, you can kick them. And if you have close combat, the kick will become a leg trip. You can use this even when you're out of stamina, and then you can use a ground execution, which you can also do while you're out of stamina. When you fully max out close combat, you do have the standing execution, the throw down head stomp, and if you have powerhouse, remember, you can throw zombies through one another, which will knock them down, and then you can do the very rapid close combat ground executions. But at the end of the day, I want you to think about crowds. You may see me defeat a crowd of zombies with melee. That doesn't mean you should do it. I have a lot of practice in it, but remember, melee is not designed for large groups of zombies. Just because some people can do it doesn't mean that melee was meant to do that. It just means that people have become practiced enough to do it. If you're fighting a crowd of zombies, consider running. You don't get very much of anything for killing zombies. Consider luring them away. Get in your car, honk the horn, lure away, and then drive back. Or use an incendiary, use a Molotov, use a fuel bomb, use the pyro launcher, reverse into them with the back of your car. One of the ways you can take a pounding is just because you're fighting a crowd of zombies in melee combat and you haven't developed the practice for it yet. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the freak zombies, starting with the feral. Now, if I asked you, what is the main weapon of the feral, and therefore what is the main way you're going to take damage, most of you are going to say, well, it's going to be their speed. They just get on you so quickly. Maybe it's their ability to ambush you. But I'm going to tell you right now, the main power of the feral comes from the panic they cause. Like when you get attacked by a feral, a lot of times your brain gets kind of like thunderstruck, you panic, and you start making dopey decisions instead of fighting the feral with cold, methodical precision, whether it be just dodging away and getting into your car, whether it be a quick drop kick execution, whether it be throwing a Molotov on him or using the pyro launcher to burn him, to force him to stop, drop, and roll while you roll away to put out the fire and get to your vehicle and escape. All of those are very well thought out of escapes or answers to a feral. But if you are getting panicked by the feral, which is their main strength, you're going to begin doing weird things like trying to chop up the feral with a sword, which, while technically possible, isn't a super good idea, or stabbing a feral with your knife, which is also not a great idea. So the way you reduce the damage you take from ferals is ironically to take more damage from them. Fight them safely in the green zone, in the standard zone, one-on-one and melee combat. That will help you kind of like desensitize yourself to the feral so that you get attacked and you're like, I've seen that, I've dealt with it, I've fought like hundreds of ferals in melee combat. That's why they don't phase me. And you can get a portion of that by fighting them at a low difficulty where it's a lot safer. You can take a ton of damage and body them in melee combat. And you will find your fear of ferals is greatly reduced. And when you reduce your fear of ferals, you will, as a result, take quite a bit less damage. Because when you do get ambushed by them, you might have the reaction time to just dodge and not even get ambushed in the first place. And with methodical precision, respond to the feral with like gunslinging headshot, burn it with like a Molotov and escape to your vehicle. There's so many things that you can do if you do not panic. Next up, you've got the bloater. And the bloater is very similar to a feral in that the main power of a bloater comes from the panic that it causes, because it might sound a little surprising, but the damage they deal to you is survivable in most cases, even inside a vehicle. That's actually how you get over the issue of bloaters is, once again, on the green zone, on the standard zone, run over a bloater on purpose, bring some strong painkillers with you, and heal through the damage. And you will see that, hey, you know what? It's actually not that big of a deal. And while sure, it is a bigger deal on lethal zone, you actually can heal through bloater damage. You will get the blood plague, but you won't die from the blood plague. And if you drive through a blood plague bloater on lethal zone, stay in the car for the full time, keep a plague cure with you, get a, a strong painkiller, get a few of them so you can heal yourself, and you will see that it is survivable. Why is this important? Because one of the main ways you're going to die from a bloater is because there was a feral after you as well. You get hit with the bloater, you panic, you get out of the vehicle, and then a feral eats you. He takes advantage of the fact that you are incapacitated by the gas. This can happen quite frequently on the lethal zone when a triple feral pack takes advantage of the fact that you're probably already 80% infected by blood plague and that you're easy prey for them. But if you had the discipline, if you were just able to like suck all those nasty bloater farts into your lungs and just be, I'm just going to deal with it. Like I'm stoic. Like I am just going to let that bloater fart get into my lungs. And instead of panicking, I am going to drive calmly, not even at full speed. I'm going to calmly drive, search for an area that is empty. I will pop a painkiller when I need to. And then I will get out, use my plague cure, and all is well. But the way you gain that steely determination, that unshakable resolve, is by testing how much damage you can take from bloaters and getting over the panic of running them over. Lastly, let's talk about the Juggernaut. I'm not going to talk about Screamers because, they're not really much of a combatant, but Juggernauts. I'm going to be a little harsh here. If you die from a Juggernaut, that is a self-inflicted death 99 out of 100 times. The reason for that is because, I'm going to be totally honest, Juggernauts are really ineffective zombies. They are very terrible combatants. The only way they're going to kill you is if you are just trying to die. Like if you are fighting them in melee combat, if you are fighting them head to head, that is the main way they are going to kill you. In other words, it is a self-inflicted death, and that's because you can outrun them. Even when you have Blood Plague, you can outrun them. They are very, very slow enemies. All of their attacks are slow. You can see them coming a mile away. Juggernauts should not kill you. Sure, there is the 1 out of 100 times where, you hit a Blood Plague bloater, you get out, and then a Juggernaut grabs you immediately and rips you in half. Very strange thing. It's an uncommon thing to happen. It's not very common though. Or you could get a Juggernaut health link glitch where a Juggernaut attacking something else, like another hostile human or a friendly human, transfers the damage to you. That could happen. You could just quit out of the game. I don't think that's unfair considering that it's a glitch. But otherwise, Juggernauts should just never kill you. And the main way you deal with Juggernauts is just to not fight them. They don't give you anything. You get 50 influence on Standard Zone. You get 25 influence on the Lethal Zone. They're just not worth fighting. You can just avoid them. You can run away from them. If they're guarding something, honk the horn, lure them away, come back after you've lured them away. If they're interfering with an infestation, lure them away once again. If you do need to kill them, there are so many super effective ways. The best way is the Bouncing Boris. That is a grenade-type weapon from the Radio Call-In Independence pack. Get a Fireworks Crafting Station from the Supply pack, and it'll let you build them. They are absolutely devastating. Takes a moment to get the hang of the throw, but they will destroy a Juggernaut in one throw. Another way to get them is pipe bombs. Pipe bombs are not too expensive. Just throw 5 of them and they'll be dead, or 4 or 5 and you can execute them. Lure them to your allies and leave them there. Drive away. Lure them to your allies and run around in circles, not in melee combat. Run around in wide circles around the Juggernaut. Get its attention. It'll chase you. It can't catch you, and your allies will shoot it to pieces. And then you can kill it basically for free. Lure it to your base if your base has 50 caliber guns. If you have 50 caliber guns guarding your base, they will shoot the Juggernaut to pieces. There are so many good ways to kill a Juggernaut, and one of the best ways is don't even kill it, just ignore it. You can also use the Clio Heavy Sniper, which is a good and cheap, effective way to knock out a Juggernaut. But I can't stress how weak and ineffective Juggernauts are once you understand that they're not worth killing and that they're really, really easy to avoid, and they're very stupid. They're so easy to take advantage of. So Juggernauts are something that you should very rarely die from, and you shouldn't really take a lot of damage from them, if any damage at all, because once again, they are so slow and predictable. Oh, also I forgot. Another way to kill them is to just reverse into them repeatedly with a vehicle. Just keep in mind that it can be a bit random. It can take many rams. Anyways, to wrap things up, let me go ahead and summarize things. As you're playing on Green Zone and Standard Zone, you want to go to the higher difficulties. You need to fix some of the bad habits that you risk developing as you explore the game. And a big one is not taking damage seriously. Learn to avoid damage in the Green Zone and the Standard Zone, and you will be so much better prepared for the Nightmare Zone, for the Lethal Zone. Remember, the way to tell if you're taking too much damage is, are you getting bit by regular zombies? If you're getting bit, then slow down and think about why it is. Are you getting tunnel vision? Are you being overly aggressive? With ferals, the main issue is panic. Fight some ferals in the safety, one-on-one on Green Zone and Standard Zone. Get over the fear of ferals. Same with bloaters. Drive over some bloaters and experience how much damage they do. Heal through it with a painkiller, and you'll see they're not that big of a deal. And lastly, Juggernauts. Just avoid them. They are such a weak and crummy enemy because they are so slow, and they are not able to project their physical strength because they're so obvious. Lure them to allies. Run around in circles to distract them. Blow them up with the Bouncing Boris, with the pipe bombs. Use the Clio 50 caliber heavy sniper. Use your vehicle, reverse into them, or just do what I do. Ignore them. They're such a bad enemy. They're just not worth your attention. Anyways, that is my advice to the new player trying to get better at State of Decay 2. Tune in for more The Fox talks, podcasts, or vlogs, whatever you want to call them, because I'll have more stuff to discuss with you guys. Let me know in the comment section if you suffer from any of these issues and what you're going to do to try and fix them. And have you tried these tactics before? Have they helped you play better? Share your thoughts down in the comment section. And of course, remember, you can catch me live if you want some live advice. You want to see me, the Fox, in action. Catch me at Twitch at GetGoodFox. I'm playing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock Eastern Time. That's GMT -5. Anyways, see you next time, survivors. Remember that you don't have to be good to get good.